A very good day. My name is IRMA WANI OTHMAN. I'm from University Malaysia Sabah. Today I would like to present a paper that titled Corruption Offences Education Literacy in Preventing the Loss of National Treasures, a review of challenges and concern. Background of the studies. Since the dawn of civilization, corruption has been a social symptom in practically every community. It is an unethical practice that transcends nation, race, ethnicity, and custom. In Malaysia, corruption offences are penalised harshly. Unfortunately, corrupt practices are still rampant, and if the severe sentence fail to deter them from continuing to conduct the horrific crime. The result of a study by Transparency International Malaysia showed that 7 out of 10 Malaysians are involved in corruption. This is regarded crucial and worrisome because the country's younger generation is also exposed to a culture of corruption that has become commonplace in the eyes of some. Based on MACC arrest record from 2015 to 2020, 52.6% or 2,975 individuals were under the age of 40. With that, young people must be exposed to the dangers of corruption at an early age to generate trustworthy and honorable individuals. If corruption in our country is not addressed promptly, it will become so widespread that it will control all corners of our society. This will have an adverse effect on our nation. This paper's primary objective is to deconstruct the concern and challenges that are related with the culture of corruption or viewed as the underlying cause of corruption problems in our country. In light of this circumstance, corruption offences education literacy plays a crucial role in educating the community against corruption. Literature review of this study cover several elements such as identity theft, banking fraudulent, theft, scam schemes, cybercriminal, corruption, and so forth. Topics discussed in this article include 5 major issues, which is integrity. The second one, Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, or known as MACC. The third one, community role, and the fourth one is youth awareness. First and foremost, integrity. Corruption is a question of integrity, and integrity is a question of individual attitude and action. This paper emphasizes that those in position of authority, community members, and non-governmental organizations known as NGOs that support the objective of developing a society and nation free of corruption, malpractice, and abuse of authority must all share this responsibility. Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, known as MACC. We applaud the authorities in this country, such as MACC, for their devotion and hard work in bringing corrupt individuals to justice. The facet of law enforcement, such as arrest and prosecution, as well as teaching in the public about corruption action. In fact, we fully support the MACC aim to build a database of corrupt criminals for its website. According to the MACC, the fundamental goal of this initiative is to demonstrate preventative measures and provide unambiguous evidence that a war on corruption has been declared. The MACC database is a valuable public awareness tool that assists individuals and businesses in conducting research and evaluation before recruiting, appointing, or promoting their employees. Meanwhile, what are the duties of community members? Members of society who hate corruption cannot remain silent indefinitely. Allowing unscrupulous and dishonest people to continue bringing harm to all existing institutions and organizations, hence rejecting people's rights. Never be afraid of intimidated to denounce any acts of corruption or dishonesty that take place in our midst. Our neutrality on corruption culture and practices has encountered corrupt perpetrators to act with greater audacity and become tyrannical. Naturally, every member of society should take action to prevent and combat corruption and power abuse that is taking place in front of our eyes. Members of the public should be brave enough to disclose instances of corruption in the light of the Whistleblower Protection Act of 2010. The research methodology in this writing uses a qualitative approach based on social science discipline that require careful observation of aspects that focus more on processes and events. Information from various sources, such as primary and secondary sources, by using secondary data content analysis method related to history, law, historiography, sociology, and ethnography, and partnered with descriptive analytical discussion. This paper applies secondary sources such as research results published in journal, scholarly writing, online news sources, and public forum to employ a qualitative methodology. The result of the study present 8 mandatory measures to combat corruption, namely, the first one, understanding the characteristic of corrupt acts and giving. Second one, the eliminating the corruption culture and abuse of power as a standard of living in the community. Third, shaping public perception against corruption in politics. Fourth, educating the public about the consequences of corruption on the national administrative system. The fifth, developing institutions and strategies to combat corruption. Six, stressing the importance of fighting corruption through experiential learning. Seven, diverse method of combating corruption in the past and present. And last but not least, number 8, corruption, law enforcement and punishment. First one, understanding the characteristic of corrupt acts and giving. So according to the MACC definition, corruption is defined as the accepting and offering of bribes. Bribes can be physical or non-physical and can be given or received in any ways. For instance, physical corruption must be in the form of money. However, it is more difficult to discover corruption in non-physical manifestations such as support and votes, that is intangible form. This non-physical kind of corruption is more visible to Malaysians and occurs frequently during election season, for example. Many politicians conduct numerous campaigns to attract and convince voters to support the political party they represent. Yet, to what extent? Does the gift retain its original purpose of a gift? Generally, gift can be bribes if given to the wrong individual. The National Security Council has issued which state that public officials are barred from giving and receiving gifts from parties with official connection. The giving and receiving of these gifts are subject not only to the individual civil servant but also to any member of the family, whether giving or receiving directly or indirectly in visible form or not from or to any party. Eliminating the corruption culture and abuse of power as a standard of living in the community. Corruption is prevalent in a society for a variety of reasons. One of them is the easily influenced human nature. This is evident when individuals with financial or family economics issues are unstable. Individuals who fail to accept their financial issues will engage in corrupt action as a shortcut. By accepting a huge fund offer from another party, the financial troubles will be quickly resolved. As a result, the problem of society financially instability is caused by the uncontrolled use of money. This is true when people live in a way of life that encourage them to spend money on non-essential purchases and to spend their money on entertainment. This has ultimately resulted in a waste of money and financial difficulties for certain parties. Furthermore, the culture of corruption that exists in society is a source of psychological issues. One is shaping public perception against corruption in politics. In Malaysia, corruption has never ceased to be a topic of community discussion, and the occurrence of this crime continues to rise. This increase in corruption is not merely an observation, but is supported by IPR by Transparency International, where Malaysia continued to record a decline by falling from 51 or 51st place in 2019 to 57th into 2020. Even high-profile corruption cases frequently result in guilty verdicts, which is one of the factors contributing to the deterioration of people's confidence in attempts to combat corruption in Malaysia. Leaders embroiled in corruption allegations have a place among their supporters and can even win election, hold their posts, and remain popular. This situation causes society to always have a bad view of corruption and to identify it with politics in a close and inseparable manner. The fourth one is educating the public about the consequences of the corruption on the national administrative system. As we know, every year we all know that World Anti-Corruption Day is observed. But do we as Malaysians truly grasp that corruption is not only unlawful but also detrimental to both individual and the nation as a whole? It is evident that corruption will have negative consequences. Therefore, one of the organizational consequences of corruption in our country will be crippling of an organization function. This is said because no one will question one's behavior in the context of corrupt activities. In actuality, such unethical practices will diminish public confidence in our nation in ingenuity. In the meanwhile, it will cause a country administration to be in disarray. It will eventually lead to problems such as economic downturn, disregard for community interests, etc. This culture of corruption ultimately destroys the administration and governance of a country. In addition, the dignity of the country will be tarnished. This is because corruption describes biased practices and injustice in a society where many others are actually prosecuted because of these bad practices. One is developing institutions and strategies to combat corruption. Despite the fact that numerous parties have offered various tactics and measures to combat this sign of corruption, it remains extremely difficult to remove. Malaysia, which has institutions to prevent and implement corruption-related legislation, anti-corruption programs, and a national anti-corruption plan for 2019 to 2023, is still unable to reduce the IPR or restore public confidence in the prevention of corruption, according to experts. Apparently, the obligation to combat corruption does not rest solely on the shoulders of the authorities or the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission (MACC). Rather, in order to reduce or combat corruption, every level of society must pledge not to give or accept bribes. Corruption, offences, educational literacy is one of the most significant solutions for experiential learning focus disorder. This is because Malaysians have trained their minds to comprehend something in only one context. Six, stressing the importance of fighting through experiential learning. Despite the fact that numerous parties have offered various tactics and measures to combat this sign of corruption, it remains extremely difficult to remove. Malaysia is which has institutions to prevent and implement corruption-related legislation, anti-corruption programs, and a national anti-corruption plan for 2019 to 2023, is still unable to reduce RPR or restore public confidence in the prevention of the corruption, according to experts. Apparently, the obligation to combat corruption does not rest solely on the shoulders of the authorities or the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission. Rather, in order to reduce or combat corruption, every level of society must pledge not to give or accept bribes. Corruption offences education literacy is one of the most significant solutions for experiential learning focused disorder. This is because Malaysians have trained their minds to comprehend something in only one context. Number 7, diverse methods of combating corruption in the past and present. The difference in how corruption was dealt in the past and today. In the past, authorities have undertaken a variety of methods and measures to fight this issue. Despite the authorities' many methods and efforts to remove corruption, the crime has not yet completely eliminated. The question is, what is different between the methods and effort used to combat the crime of corruption in the past and in the present? In the past, for example, corruption was combated through strengthening the rule of law and punishment, among other methods. In this context, government must demonstrate their commitment in combating corruption by taking action against violators regardless of their status. Today, there are a variety of modern media that can be utilized to distribute information regarding corruption offences. For instance, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok can be used to distribute information regarding corruption offences. On this basis, it is seen more beneficial to educate people from all walks of life about the dangers of committing corruption offences to oneself, one family, one community, and one country. Furthermore, the government must establish additional anti-corruption institutions to combat corruption today. In this context, the formation of anti-corruption institutions will assist in strengthening the effort of individual responsibility for combating corruption offences as early as varsity education that make compulsory as one of the taught syllabus. Last but not least, number 8, corruption law enforcement and punishment. Authorities have undertaken a variety of methods and measures to fight this issue. Despite the authorities' many methods and efforts to remove corruption, the crime has not yet been eliminated. The question is, what is the difference between the methods and effort used to combat the crime of corruption in the past and in the present? In the past, corruption was combated through strengthening the rule of law and punishment, among other methods. In this context, government must demonstrate their commitment in combating corruption by acting against violators regardless of their status. Moreover, the citizens are still believe on their worldwide view that there are parties who accept bribes without being brought to justice. People are therefore dissatisfied with the government honesty in addressing this issue. The government determination to prosecute or drag them to court serve a reminder that they do not accept bribes. Corruption practitioners, for instance, are hesitant to commit corruption offences because of fear of punishment. To avoid the occurrence of biased punishment, the punishment imposed must be proportional to the offence committed against the party involved, especially those in high positions. Wrap up this presentation, the goal of the future study should be able to demonstrate the corruption will not be eradicated in the near future, whereby education must emphasize learning via the experience of the younger generation in order to instill the nature of integrity, strong spirit, and ethical values, as well as high discipline, so that individual can build a strong sense of self-fight all sorts of corruption, thus should be prominent in society as to abolish the culture of corruption in Malaysia. For that, I thank you.